Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 173 of the Citrix Session. I'm your host, Bill Sutton, the Director of Modern Workspace at XenTegra. I have with me today a gentleman from Citrix. Geremy, you want to introduce yourself in this new year?
In this new year, yeah. I mean, well, listen, Bill, it's almost February. Where has the month gone? But listen, I'm Geremy Meyers. I'm an ATS director here at Citrix. So, I've been here for many, many years.
I was going to ask you, how
Got-
many years is it
well,
now?
I think this July might be 13 years.
Wow.
Might be the number 12 or 13. Starting to hit the age where I start to forget numbers. It's funny because folks have asked me what my age is, and my wife laughs because I've been a year off more than once. Or I'll tell someone a number, and my wife goes, "You're not that old," or you're you're a little bit older actually. So, anyways,
Right.
long story short, it has been at least 12 years. I will say that.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
that's great to be at one place that long. I don't think, when I look back on my career from the beginning till now,
Hmm.
I think the record was 6.5 years for me at one employer. Um, and that was a job before XenTegra. And I've been at XenTegra I've been 6 years
Hmm.
and 4 months, 3 months. So I'm coming up on the longest one before long.
Yes, you are. Well, listen, it's gone by really fast. There is a lot that has changed
Oh, yeah, I'm
in
sure.
the EUC space, and listen, I think our topic today around well, listen, yet another acquisition. It's just kind of interesting because it had me thinking about a lot of the acquisitions we've made over the years and kind of where they fit into not just the ecosystem, but even, sort of the Citrix, sort of the Citrix puzzle, if you will. Um, but man, good stuff. Citrix is making a lot of stuff going on right
That's
now.
right. And this little short back and forth has teed it up pretty good for us when we talk about lots of changes over the years, like you just said. We're going to
Hmm.
talk about another one. So the the topic for today's podcast is furthering our investment in the Citrix platform with the strategic acquisition of Unicon. It's written by Sridhar Mullapudi, who's one of the presidents at Citrix, the Citrix business unit. So this was just announced last week. So Geremy probably more than I, are trying to get up to speed with what this means. But you want to talk fundamentally about what it is, Geremy, from a Citrix
Yeah,
perspective, anyways?
yeah, I mean, it's pretty fresh. We just acquired this company Unicon last week, but it is a thin client operating system provider, right? So,
Right.
the first thing that I had to dig into when I saw this is, are we in the hardware business? And it doesn't look like we are. So, Unicon is it's actually two different pieces, right? So it is the secure endpoint OS. So it's called Elux. And on the back end, there is a management stack to support that is cloud-based called Scout. So it's been a partner of Citrix's for a long time. I didn't realize the company was so old. In fact, 30 years old. And when I
Yeah.
mentioned this to a few of my peers, they went, "Who?" And I go, "Well, listen, it's been around for a while."
German
And I
based.
didn't,
Yeah.
yeah, and I didn't realize it, which is pretty neat. And the footprint is actually pretty expensive or extensive, and quite it's heavily deployed in a lot of financial markets actually, which I thought was quite interesting. But just like you, Bill, I'm still wrapping my head around this just a bit. But I mean, we were joking about before we hopped on. We talked about Citrix being 90% of the trip, and needing some other piece to get that last 10% of the trip here. And I guess what we were kind of alluding to was the thin client space, the endpoint space.
Yeah. So to that point, like you said, like we were talking about, and getting 90% there, it's the endpoint has always been the kind of, I can remember, and even recently, conversations with customers around solutioning and how they were going to make enable access to their VDI environment or access to their SaaS apps. And obviously the easy answer is, oh, we'll just use a Windows PC, and that's fine in some cases, but in a lot of cases, you want a more secure lockdown environment, and historically you had to go to third parties to get that. And now with Elux and Scout coming into the Citrix ecosystem as part of the new licensing, and we'll talk about that in a minute. We can now get all the way to the endpoint, right, Jeremy?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. So, yeah, what's interesting is, for the longest time, we sort of rallied against Windows at the endpoint for a
Right,
lot of use cases.
right,
The idea being, if we could simplify what security looks like on the endpoint, we're not patching Windows. That's not it's not a security footprint or that we necessarily want to have, we didn't want to have to address. I think this is where the secure endpoints from not just Elux, but iGel, Stratadesk, like a lot of the partners that we've got have really carved out a pretty successful niche, right?
Yes.
Let's reduce the attack surface of the endpoint with a hardened, purpose-built, operating system. 10 years ago, 15 years ago, that included sort of the software and the hardware, but I guess where we're kind of trending is it's less hardware and more of a software platform that you can install and repurpose and listen, at the end of the day, extend the life of a lot of hardware. But the secret sauce is that software. And I think Linux has sort of opened that up quite a bit. And at the end of the day, Elux is Linux under the hood.
Yeah, and of course, this comes at just the right time when you start talking about Windows 10 end of support forthcoming later this year. So that's, it's top of mind for a lot of folks. And, one of the key things here about this, and we'll talk about it a little bit more detail here in a minute, is that this is not just another means of accessing a VDI environment. This is a full-featured, purpose-built Linux environment that can enable access to cloud or SAS-based apps as well. And I imagine that, and I'm going out on a limb here a little bit, but I imagine that pair this up with something like Secure Private Access from Citrix, and you've got the ability to access just about anything you need from one of these, from a device running this OS.
Yeah. So I've got one of my other devices, Bill, is actually it's a Ubuntu based laptop, right? So every so often I like to fire that guy up, tinker with it a little bit. And having the Workspace app and having the enterprise browser running on Linux has been pretty, honestly super helpful.
Right.
Since even as a Citrix employee, I'd argue 90% of the applications I access these days are SAS-based. Half of those are probably internal web apps. There's the other half's probably external. But at the end of the day, can't remember the last time I've launched. It's going to sound weird, a virtual desktop or even a virtual app, because a majority of what I access are those web and SaaS apps. And
right.
Interestingly enough, they're secured the exact same way. So we do have those controls, and we've actually even layered on things like app layering. But I'm doing that from a Linux endpoint as well, which means I can run that inside sort of a Linux thin client OS as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. Last week, I came in the morning and turned my laptop on, which I use to access most everything, sometimes a virtual desktop. But a lot of what, like you said, a lot of what we do is in a secure browser environment. And I turned the laptop on and I got a blue screen asking for my BitLocker key. Something had changed, I guess, when a patch installed. Well, I didn't have the BitLocker key, so I very quickly fired up another device running a Linux OS, got into my virtual desktop and realized, well, I've got the secure browser on here. I don't really need to get into VDI except for a couple things. And so I worked for about 3 hours until they were able to locate the BitLocker key and got my laptop unlocked. But the point is, I had an alternative means of doing that, and it didn't involve Windows.
Which is, man, could we have said that 10 or 15 years ago? Probably
No,
not.
sir.
Probably
No,
not.
sir. I would have been twiddling thumbs while I waited for them to get me that lengthy key to get it unlocked. So we talked a lot about the end user experience, which is part of this article. Basically, pairing Unicon's hybrid solution with the VDI and app delivery solution enhances user experiences. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Geremy, or not.
No, I mean, just from an architecture perspective, so I'm still sort of wrapping my heads around this, a bit technically, but, at the end of the day, Elux is the operating system that would run on the endpoint, right? So, again, you could repurpose a piece of hardware. I've got a MacBook here. I've run thin client software on it before. Same token, I got a couple of laptops here that, I like to demo from, but the idea is, I could flash the hard drive, run this off a stick, and of course, I've got a thin client run, OS running locally. Right. At the end of the day, the backend that this is managed from is also called Scout, right? So this is a cloud-based solution. I haven't had a chance yet to dig into it just yet, but again, being able to manage, all the pieces of that hardware, peripherals, what I can turn on and off, and redirect, those sorts of things. It's all managed from the that backend as well. So it's very much a hybrid solution.
Yeah. So it's managed by the Scout cloud-based environment that communicates with the Elux OS and allows you to configure and manage the devices pretty much anywhere they are. I imagine. I mean, again, we're still learning this, but The other piece here, which I think we want to talk about, is this will be part of some of the licensed SKUs or the packaging that Citrix has done. Why don't you talk a little bit about that, Geremy? It's in this last section here.
Yeah. So listen, how do I get this right? So, thing number one, if you're an existing Unicon customer, you're already paying for Elux, you're paying for Scout, you can continue to renew as is until either A, your next Citrix renewal, or B, I think if I caught this correctly, there's an FAQ in this article as well. You'll be able to renew up through the end of November, which at that point, in order to renew, you'd have to do a Citrix renewal. But the idea is we're going to include Unicon as a part of either the Universal Hybrid Multi-Cloud license or the Citrix platform license. So at your next renewal, if you've looked in your licensing portal anytime recently, you'll notice the list of things that you also have licenses for is expanding. So, most recently, if you go look in your portal, you'll see an Uber agent license. You'll also see a device trust license as well.
Mm-hmm.
If you head out to My Citrix, which we don't really call it that anymore, but everyone knows what I'm talking about. You got your My Citrix portal, you'll see those licenses. And after your next renewal, you'll also see, and I have no idea what this looks like just yet, the licenses for Unicon as well.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things this last bulleted section anyways, talks about is integration with things like Windows 365 and AWS Workspace's core, in addition to the core Citrix set. I believe probably Elux had already had these capabilities built in, or they will be added.
They're already there, right? So if you're a Windows,
okay.
yeah. So if you're a Windows 365 customer, they've got access to that as well as Workspace's core baked right into the OS.
Right.
In fact, if you've got those use cases today, in addition to Citrix, you could certainly hang these endpoints off of, maybe a hosted AV or, Workspace's, install. Maybe you're running AVD, Cloud PC. Right. These tie into those platforms directly as well. So you're absolutely right, Bill.
Yeah, good stuff. So this is just another example of Citrix continuing to add value to the products. This is a pretty short article, so I think we're nearly done. Any final thoughts, Geremy?
I think the one last thing it hits on here is, just the idea that because we've got this new integration, you'll quickly start to see integrations with some of the other pieces of the stack. So, for instance, maybe a native integration with device trust. So that was an acquisition recently, around Zero Trust, and the same thing with strong networks. So that is I don't want to call it a niche use case, but if you've got developers within your organization, here's a way to do developer use cases that fall outside of the traditional. Let's go give someone a VDI box and, oddly enough, probably dedicated desktops so they can kind of do as they please. Right. Device network or strong network is sort of a different way to deploy that use case. It's a bit more secure, using a lot of the tools that your developers are probably using anyways, and a lot more cost effective as well. So, but listen, there's a lot to come on this. I think the FAQ does a really good job of addressing some initial things like, what do I do if I own it? When will I get it? Obviously less than a week out from the acquisition. There's a lot to learn. So listen, I love technology. I love the way where the company's headed. You can kind of see some of the acquisitions, sort of the roadmap here. So, I love digging my teeth into technology. And there's another.
Yeah, agreed. And one thing, I think we touched on it, but I'm going back a little bit here, is that this company, like Geremy said earlier, is 30 years old, and they've got apparently a pretty significant presence in the financial services industry. So there are a lot of financial services organizations that are apparently already leveraging the Elux and Scout platform, the Unicon platform, for delivering applications or accessing applications. So this is not like it's some small brand new company. They've been around a while, and they've got a strong presence in a rather important industry in our economy. So definitely worth looking at for customers that need this type of solution on the endpoint. And if you're a CPL or Citrix Platform license or a Universal Hybrid Multi-Cloud license holder at your next renewal, you get it.
You get it.
So it'll be there for you. I'm looking forward to when they will make it available to partners. I'd like to get it on a device here and start kicking the tires myself. I'm sure you are too, Geremy. But anyways, we'll get there, right?
Yes, we will. Yes, we will. I will keep you updated as soon as that comes out, for sure.
Please do. Any other final thoughts?
I think honestly where this lands, and we kind of led with this, is, I think a lot of customers, given the economy, given sort of just the state of IT, they're looking for ways to maybe reduce spend and consolidate vendors and costs. And I think this is probably the biggest reason we did this, because this has been an ask for customers for years. Is there another way to do this? Can we consolidate down? Hey, what does Citrix do from this space? And so, um, I think we have leveraged our partners in the past. We will continue to leverage our partners. However, there's an option for customers who are looking for, just reducing the number of vendors they manage. And so it will be included. It's an option. And for a lot of customers, I would argue, go test it out. See if it works for you.
Agreed. And, since the announcement and the packaging changes that occurred in March, April of last year, this is the really the fourth acquisition when you consider Uber Agent.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm as pleased as I am to see this and the continuing evolution of additional products to satisfy additional use cases. I'm also very interested in knowing what's coming next. So unfortunately, I'm sure we can't talk about that here, even if we knew. But I guess we just have to kind of sit tight and see what's next. But this is really a good and positive outcome or positive event for Citrix and for the end user community. So I'm looking forward to kicking the tires on this one and talking to customers about it.
Me too. Yeah, I'm pretty fired up about this one. So,
all right, with that, thank you, Geremy. Appreciate it. This is a pretty short one, but we'll be back again next week to do another one. Thank you all.
All right. We'll see you next week.